So, picking your first kettlebell can be confusing. Too light, you won't make any long-term progress. Too heavy, you could risk injury and you won't be able to complete some of the movements that the kettlebells are best known for. So we need to try and pick the right starting weight if you've never trained with them before. So in this video, I'm going to quickly explain to you guys where you should potentially be looking to start with, and we'll take into a few things, some considerations. We'll take into a few considerations, whether you're male, female, any training experience, and I'll even suggest just one kettlebell if you're only planning on to look to buy just one of them. So first of all, let's go over whether or not you've got any training experience whatsoever, or if you're a complete beginner. Training experience in this scenario, I'm saying, you've got like maybe 8 to 12 months, like up to a year of like actual lifting experience. You've done some, not necessarily with the kettlebells, but you've done some resistance training, you've worked with barbells, you've used dumbbells, you've got a bit of training, you've built some foundations there. So that's what that's what I am suggesting in when I'm talking about lifting experience. Now, if you guys are a complete beginner and you have not started anywhere, so ladies, I would suggest if you've never touched a kettlebell before, you've done no resistance training, I would suggest that you guys would start from anywhere in the range from a 6 kilo kettlebell all the way up to potentially a 12 kilo kettlebell. And for the men, if you guys have got absolutely no experience whatsoever, completely new to training, I would suggest that you start somewhere with like a 12 and maybe like progress that up to a 16. A 12 or 16 would be a great starting range. The reason for this is that they're not going to be too heavy for you. You're going to be able to complete quite a few of the movements, but it's going to be enough to challenge you to start with. If you go any heavier than that, you're going to really start to struggle until you've got the patterns and the foundations sorted. Now, if you do have resistance training and you've done some strength training, you've built some foundation already, and now you're looking to start using kettlebells and incorporate them into your training, we obviously want to start a little bit higher. So ladies, I would suggest that you would start anywhere from, we'll move it up a little bit, I would suggest that you would start from anywhere from the 8 to 16 range. And men, again, I would say you would actually start from the 16s all the way up to maybe a 24 kilo kettlebell. So they're sort of like rough guidelines for you to start at. I would look in the area of them. So with that being said, that is where, if you could only buy one kettlebell, if you could only afford one kettlebell and you just wanted to start out, they are the guidelines that I would work in, because you need to pick a weight that is going to be challenging enough for some lower body movements when you come to do your squats and your deadlifts, so it's not just pointless doing them. So it still wants to be a little bit challenging, but it also don't want to be impossible to press over your head, because when it comes to kettlebells, we typically do full body workouts, we do complexes, we're always mixing and matching. So it needs to be challenging for the lower half, but it don't want to be impossible for you to press above your head and do the snatches and the cleans, because then you're going to struggle in that area. So yeah, guidelines, the recommendations for these. Ladies, I would say you start from anywhere from the 12s all the way up to a 16 kilo range in that guideline. And then like I said before, I would start from like anywhere to 16, 20, 24 being the max end of things if you've got some training experience. So they're the considerations that I would take into place. If you could only get one kettlebell, always try and figure out whether or not it's going to be challenging enough to do squats and deadlifts with, but not impossible to press. You want to be somewhere within that range. But if you are looking to make an investment and you want to get as much as you can out of kettlebells and training at home, then the ideal situation that you guys would be in would be to invest in just 3 kettlebells. Just 3 kettlebells to start with. You would want a light kettlebell for doing overhead things, the presses, snatches, things like that. A light one, and also a light one when you're doing when you're learning movements, when you're doing like complexes and you're having to ask your body to do different motions, you're doing like windmills or Turkish get-ups, then kind of things, you would want a light kettlebell to learn the patterns with. Then you would want like a medium weighted kettlebell. This would be general training, swings, cleans, squats, goblet squats, rack squats, marches, presses, general training in that respect. And then you would want a heavier one where you could incorporate them into your strength days. This is where you'd be looking to do heavy sets of squats, heavy deadlifts, heavy swings, really start to bring it all together, where you've got like your light one for learning patterns and overhead presses, you've got a medium one that you can progress to, and then you've got your heavy one where you can really start incorporating your strength training. So my weight recommendations, if you could pick 3, again, this is like if you've got a little bit of training experience and you want to dive into it. Ladies, I would say your light kettlebell would want to be the 6 or the 8 kilo kettlebell. That's enough for you to do presses, things like that. I would say Your medium general weight for most training, I would say, would come from like a 12 or a 16 kilo kettlebell. That's going to cover you for most things when you're doing like complexes, conditioning, general training. And then your heavier end of it, I would say anywhere up to 24 kilos. 24 kilos would definitely be probably roughly around maximum if you're just starting out with kettlebells. Once you start getting a bit more advanced, you can start looking to up that weight a little bit more. But that's where I would start for the ladies. Men, I would say your light kettlebell, if you're just starting out and you've got a little bit of experience or whatever, I would say you'd want to start with a 12 kilo kettlebell for your light work, for some conditioning, learning the movements, the Turkish get-ups, the windmills, the half kneeling stuff. I would say that one. Generally, if you're looking to do like your general training, again, like I've said before, the swings, cleans, and all that sort of jazz, I would say you'd want to be anywhere from the 16 to a 20 kilo range. And then obviously top end of things, if you were looking to get some really good strength, like incorporate some strength training where you can really push yourself in your squats and your deadlifts, I would say anywhere from like 24 kilos up to a 30 kilo kettlebell is probably going to be absolutely fine to start with. Maybe not the 30s, 28s, that should be about right. Anywhere within them ranges are going to give you a really good variety of different weighted kettlebells to just keep you progressing, to keep things entertaining, and you've got a really good variety there for different styles of training, conditioning, strength workouts, muscle building, all them sorts of things. Yeah, so like I said, if you're looking to really get going with strength training and build as much strength as possible, and you're only interested in that, then obviously you want to look at the heavier end of the kettlebells. If you're wanting to take advantage of what kettlebells are uniquely designed for, where they mix the combination between strength and conditioning, you want to be looking into like the medium range for you, because one thing that you really need to consider and like really think about when you come to kettlebell training is that they are unique in the way that they do mix the strength and conditioning. We do circuits, complexes, and things like that. So you do not want to go too heavy. You don't want to just buy the heaviest kettlebell, decide that you want to do these, and then really struggle to do the complexes and all the different movements, because form matters when it comes to kettlebell training. You need to be sturdy, you need to be thinking about the movement pattern that you're doing. You don't want to go too heavy, form over everything. So going a little bit lighter to start with to learn the movements and build that really solid foundation is going to be a better option than that. So if you are just interested in just trying, really get in there with some heavy kettlebells and go and do some really solid strength training, I would still err on the side of caution, go a little bit lighter than what you're thinking, just so you can just build that foundation and get used to the movement patterns. So to summarize, if you are completely new to training, if you are completely new to kettlebell training in any respect, never done any strength training, resistance training, start a little bit lighter than you think you should. And then if you've got some resistance training, you've done some strength training, you've done a little bit of kettlebell work, you can go a little bit heavier. Ladies, I would say if you complete starting again, like you've never done it before, I would start at the 6, anywhere up to the 12s. Men, I would start from anywhere from like the 12s up to the 20s. That is going to give you a real good variety of kettlebell, scope to work with. I would start somewhere within there. If you're only looking to buy one kettlebell and that's all you want to start with, just to give it a whirl, and you don't want to put the massive expense in and get a variety of them, then I would say you want to start within that, that middle ground. Like I've said, 6 to 12 for ladies, maybe go for an 8. And then, if you're just looking to get one, again, challenging with a lower, but not impossible for the upper. Men, if you're only looking to buy one, I would start anywhere from like the 12s up to the 20s. Like I said, so 16 would probably a really good starting point if you're looking to buy one. You've got a good enough weight there to mix some upper stuff and some lower stuff without it being too easy. And that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you've got now a clearer idea of where you should maybe be starting. So I hope you did like it. I hope you helped. Drop your comments down below, and like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see you guys in the next one.